The movie begins in the year 1983, when a man is admitted to a hospital in Los Alamos, New Mexico, with acid burns covering 9.5% of his body. He is a key suspect in a significant criminal case, prompting the detective's eagerness to talk to him. The detective approaches the man while he lies in bed, but due to severe disfigurement, the man is unable to communicate verbally. Nevertheless, the detective has a solution and places a notepad and pen on the nearby table. He explains to the man that his true identity will eventually be uncovered, urging him to save time by confessing now. As the detective starts inquiring about cults and Satanism, the man's heart rate increases noticeably. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted by a nurse who notifies the detective of an urgent phone call. While the detective leaves the room to answer the call, the burned man begins to raise his hand, attempting to reach for the pen. On the phone, the receptionist informs the detective that the man's young daughter was at the hospital earlier, but didn't leave any information. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoes from the man's room, alerting the detective. Rushing to investigate, he discovers that the burned man leaped out of the window. Before taking this drastic action, the man left a poignant message on the notepad apologizing to a certain person named Abby. Rewind to 2 weeks ago. Owen, a 12-year-old boy feeling isolated and lonely, spends time in the small front yard of his apartment, indulging in candy. When his divorced mother calls him in for dinner, he discreetly buries the candy wrappers in the snow before joining her inside. However, the dinner takes an uncomfortable turn as Owen's father calls and engages in a heated argument with his mother. The distressing call concludes with Owen's mother in tears, sitting on the couch after the meal. Feeling the weight of his emotions, Owen retrieves a knife from the kitchen and retreats to his room, where he dons a creepy mask and practices making threats. His fascination with the knife fades when he hears some noises emanating from outside. Curiosity leads him to use his telescope to observe his neighbors. He spots Jack exercising, and Larry and Virginia getting into an argument, only to reconcile with intimacy moments later. Owen can't resist observing them until Virginia catches sight of him, causing him to hastily hide. As Owen remains intrigued by the happenings outside, he becomes aware of a car parking nearby. Peeking out the window once more, he notices a middle-aged man named Thomas and a young girl named Abby moving into the apartment next to his. An unusual detail catches his attention. Abby is walking around barefoot for some unknown reason. The following morning, as Owen prepares to leave for school, he notices Abby's footprints in the snow. At school, he faces relentless bullying from Kenny and his group. In class, Kenny throws a spitball at him, and after their swimming lessons, they corner him in the locker room. Mocking him for not swimming, they cruelly taunt him and call him a little girl while hitting him with a towel. The bullying escalates as they push him to the floor and subject him to a series of wedgies, refusing to stop until Owen embarrassingly wets his pants. After school, still shaken by the day's events, Owen goes to a store where he comes across a collection of knives and decides to purchase one. Later that evening, he tries to cope with his emotions by practicing intimidating gestures with the knife, striking a tree in the yard. However, his contemplation is interrupted by the unexpected appearance of Abby, who continues to walk barefoot on the snowy ground. After exchanging some casual conversation, Abby reveals to Owen that she cannot be his friend and abruptly departs, leaving Owen to resume hitting the tree. A short while later, Owen notices Thomas leaving the apartment building, dressed entirely in black and carrying a bag. Curiosity piqued, Owen observes as Thomas goes out. The man heads to a store parking lot and proceeds to break into a car, evidently waiting for the owner's return. Soon enough, the car owner returns with groceries and drives away, but Thomas doesn't take action until the car comes to a stop in front of the train tracks. There, he abruptly attacks and takes the life of the driver. With a black mask on, Thomas brings him into the woods to be hanged on a tree. There, he ruthlessly cuts the man's neck and lets the blood fall into a jug. When it's almost full, he picks it up, but trips and accidentally spills the blood. The man goes after the jug with little blood remaining, when he suddenly sees a police car approaching. He quickly grabs the jug and heads back to the apartment complex, since he doesn't have much time to clean up. Back at the complex, as Owen arrives home, he coincidentally hears Thomas arguing with an unidentified person possessing a deep voice through the walls. The mysterious voice contemplates whether they should take matters into their own hands out there. In response, Thomas confesses his weariness, suggesting that he might be intentionally becoming careless, and perhaps even desires to be caught. The following day, much to Owen's surprise, a detective accompanied by several police officers visits the school. Their presence is in relation to the murder that occurred the previous night, and Owen soon discovers that the victim was a recent graduate from the school. In the evening, Owen once again finds himself in the yard, occupied with a Rubik's Cube. Abby approaches him once more, attempting to persuade him to leave, but when her efforts fail, she expresses interest in the cube. Owen kindly teaches her how to play, while inquiring about her peculiar habit of going barefoot. Abby reveals that she doesn't really get cold, making Owen wonder if there's anything wrong with the girl. Soon Owen says his farewell and heads back to his apartment, while she remains outside, enjoying the game. However, things take an unexpected turn when the cube slips from Abby's grasp, and she begins experiencing discomfort in her body. In distress, Abby strangely runs to a nearby tunnel, pretending to be an injured child. Jack, one of the neighbors, comes across her and tries to ask if she is all right. She asks him to carry her, since she is apparently injured, but the situation turns alarming as Abby suddenly attacks him when he picks her up. A ferocious struggle ensues and she knocks him down, consequently plunging her sharp teeth into his neck. The girl hungrily drinks his blood and then snaps his neck afterward. Meanwhile, back in his apartment, Owen resumes observing his neighbors through the walls. He notices that Jack is absent. Suddenly, he overhears Thomas scolding and insulting Abby for something she did, which he now needs to fix. This heated interaction ends, and Owen watches Thomas leave the apartment hastily. Thomas goes to the tunnel and takes drastic measures to dispose of Jack's body, hiding the evidence in the river. The following morning, Owen happily discovers the Rubik's Cube he lent to Abby lying in the yard, now covered with a layer of snow, and all assembled. In the evening, he encounters Abby once again, and this time they introduce themselves by name. Upon his question, Abby discloses that she is 12 years old maybe, and doesn't know her exact birthday. Owen gets sad after hearing that she doesn't even get presents, and tries to give the Rubik's Cube to Abby as a gift. She declines, but instead, she agrees to teach him how to solve it. As the evening progresses, they spend time together, engrossed in playing and solving the cube. The following day, during a movie session in class, Owen seizes the opportunity to learn Morse code discreetly. However, Kenny catches sight of him engaged in this activity. Later, the three bullies corner Owen in the bathroom, demanding to know what he has been writing in Morse code. When Owen refuses to show them, Kenny becomes furious and strikes him with a stick, cruelly taunting him as a girl. The brutal attack leaves Owen with a scar on his cheek, and Kenny warns him not to tell anyone about the incident. Back at home, Owen lies to his mother about the scar, claiming he fell on the playground. After dinner, he meets with Abby and shares that he's currently reading Romeo and Juliet for school. He provides Abby with a sheet containing the key to Morse code, enabling them to communicate through the wall. Abby becomes concerned when she realizes that Owen can hear her through the wall. As they talk further, Owen asks about Abby's parents, and she reveals that her mother is deceased. However, she avoids answering his question about why her father was angry with her the other day. Owen also confides in Abby about his parents' impending divorce, and she listens carefully. He opens up about his injury, telling her the truth about the bullying incident. Unhappy with what she hears, Abby urges him to stand up to the bullies. She suggests that if the knife isn't enough, she'll be there to protect him. Although Owen is doubtful, Abby places her hand on top of his and assures him that she is much stronger than she appears. A newfound bond between Owen and Abby begins to form as they share their struggles and seek strength in each other. They then start using Morse code to talk to each other through the wall as soon as they get back to their homes. The next day, Owen takes a positive step towards empowering himself by visiting his gym teacher and signing up for after-school strength training. To fund a special outing, he takes some money from his mom's purse without her knowledge and invites Abby to the arcade. There, he patiently teaches her how to play Pac-Man. Subsequently, he suggests going to the store to buy some candy, but Abby declines the offer, leaving Owen disappointed as he cannot share his favorites with her. Sensing his apparent disappointment and being unable to watch his sad face, Abby decides to accept one candy, which unfortunately leads to her feeling unwell. Owen gets worried and comforts her with a caring hug. As she is being embraced, Abby directly asks Owen if he likes her, to which he responds affirmatively. Then she inquires if he would still like her if she wasn't a girl, to which he at first gets flustered, but then hesitantly admits that he thinks he would. As they walk back to their building, Abby reveals that she has moved around a lot, and Owen expresses his desire to escape from his troublesome town. Before going to their respective homes, they stop beside the complex and are about to hold hands, but their intimacy is interrupted by Owen's mom calling him over for dinner. After wishing each other goodnight, the kids return to their respective apartments, their hearts filled with happiness. In her apartment, Abby encounters Thomas preparing to go out once again, seemingly compelled by circumstances beyond his control. Despite his predicament, Abby offers comfort by gently touching his face, a gesture that Thomas appreciates. However, he pleads with her not to see Owen again. Listening to his order, Abby neither agrees nor disagrees, and stays silent while watching him leave as he heads out to break into yet another car. He selects a car and quickly gets inside it while donning the black mask. Hidden behind the back seat, Thomas waits for the opportune moment to take action. The driver of the car picks up a friend, who carelessly tosses his bag into the back seat, unaware of Thomas's presence. As they eventually stop at a gas station, the driver exits the car to make some purchases, and the friend turns on the radio. At this moment, he turns to retrieve his bag, finally noticing Thomas. Realizing he must act swiftly, Thomas seizes the chance and attacks the man. Despite resistance from the victim, Thomas ultimately eliminates him. The struggle is not audible due to the music. Amid the chaotic situation, the car owner finally comprehends the gravity of the problem as Thomas swiftly moves into the driver's seat and starts the vehicle in an attempt to escape. Fueled by anger and fear, the car owner reacts by throwing a smoothie at the front window, obstructing Thomas's view and making it challenging to steer properly. Consequently, the car veers off course, careens into a ditch, and violently flips over, trapping both passengers beneath its weight. Thomas sees the car owner getting closer, and sirens of police cars about to show up at the scene. With nothing else left, he takes out a bottle of acid from his luggage and pours it all over to obliterate his features and render himself unidentifiable. Back in the apartments, Owen and Abby maintain their connection by touching hands through the wall, unaware of the unfolding events outside. However, everything changes when Abby overhears news on the radio about a murder suspect being hospitalized due to acid burns. Sensing a connection, she rushes to the hospital to inquire about her father, only to be met with restrictions imposed by the police. Undeterred, Abby attempts to find her way to her father. As she goes out, the receptionist takes notice of her shoeless feet and feels pity towards the poor child. She goes after her to stop her and offer assistance, but Abby is mysteriously nowhere to be found. Feeling concerned about Abby's well-being, the receptionist decides to call the detective, bringing us back to the present day. Meanwhile, on the other side, Abby climbs the building and watches Thomas through the window. She signals her presence by tapping on the glass, prompting Thomas to approach. When she asks to be let in, he motions for her to know that he is unable to speak. The two share a sorrowfully sweet moment, pressing their foreheads together. Then, with a startling revelation, Thomas offers his neck to Abby, who accepts and feeds from him. As Thomas begins to lose consciousness, his body slips and falls down to the snowy ground below. The management is quickly informed of the man's alleged passing, and they assume he took his. Abby reappears at Owen's window. She wakes him up and asks him not to turn around, seeking permission to enter his room, which he grants her. Abby undresses and joins Owen in bed, but he can't help but wonder how she got inside, finding it difficult to believe her claim that she flew. With a heartfelt desire for deeper connection, Owen bravely asks Abby to be his girlfriend. At first, Abby hesitates and rejects the proposal, stating that she's not a girl, nor is she anything in particular. However, Owen persists, assuring her that nothing will change between them. Listening to him, Abby has a change of heart and accepts his request, taking his hand and placing it on her cheek. As morning arrives, Owen wakes up to find himself alone in his room. A note from Abby lies before him, bearing the cryptic message from Romeo and Juliet that reads that she must be gone and live, or stay and perish. The enigmatic words leave Owen with a sense of confusion, but he smiles after noticing that the wrapper is of his favorite candy that he gave her. That day, Owen's gym class heads to a frozen lake for hockey and skating. However, his day takes another troubling turn as he once again faces his bullies, leaving him feeling threatened and cornered. In an act of self-defense, he grabs a metal pole and injures Kenny, ripping his ear. Amidst the chaos, the gym teacher is drawn away by the sudden screams of other students who have discovered Jack's body in the frozen lake. The tragic discovery takes priority, and Owen's situation with the bullies is temporarily set aside. Following the incident, Owen and his mother have a meeting with the principal to discuss his actions. Afterward, they return home, where they are visited by the detective, who seeks to ask them some questions. Owen is sent to his room during the conversation, and while peering out the window, he witnesses police officers investigating Jack's apartment. Afterwards, Owen tries to reach out to Abby using Morse code, but she doesn't respond due to the detective ringing her doorbell. Seeing the officer through the peephole, Abby chooses not to answer, and eventually he leaves. Later, Owen witnesses Kenny being bullied by his friend and brother, who mock his injured ear and demean him by taking his car keys. In the evening, he shares his triumph with Abby, and she expresses her pride by giving him a kiss on the cheek. They venture to an old abandoned apartment that Owen was introduced to by a previous teenage neighbor, a hidden spot which no adults know about. Abby plays some music, and as they discuss what to do, Owen suggests making a blood pact. When Owen cuts his finger, the smell of blood has a strong, painful effect on Abby. Despite her efforts to resist, she succumbs to her instincts and falls to the floor, her face transforming into a monstrous shape. Unable to control herself, Abby drinks the blood that has dripped to the floor. Owen calls out to her, but Abby tells him to go away. Unexpectedly, she rushes out of the apartment and climbs a tree. Just then Virginia appears, walking her dog, with Larry following behind. Abby pounces on Virginia, attacking her and feeding on her blood. A terrified Larry freaks out and pushes Abby off, engaging in a struggle to protect his wife. Eventually, Abby manages to escape, fleeing the scene. The events leave Owen bewildered and terrified. After witnessing the ambulance take Virginia away, Owen tends to his injured finger, reflecting on the shocking events that have unfolded. Seeking comfort, he tries to talk to his mother, but she is sound asleep and unresponsive. Feeling desperate and alone, he reaches out to his father, asking if evil people truly exist. However, his father misunderstands the question and assumes Owen's mother is filling his head with troubling ideas. Disheartened and in tears, Owen is left feeling unsupported and misunderstood. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Owen decides to visit Abby to seek answers. He politely requests permission to enter her home, mirroring what she did earlier. During their conversation, Abby confirms Owen's suspicions and reveals her true nature as a vampire, needing blood to sustain her life. She explains that she has been 12 for a very long period, and clarifies that Thomas was not her father. Among her collection of puzzle toys, Owen stumbles upon an old photograph of Abby and Thomas. Abby appears unchanged in the picture, but Thomas is depicted as a young boy, just like Owen and Abby. Feeling overwhelmed and frightened by this revelation, Owen tries to leave, but Abby stops him in his tracks. She allows him to move only when he contemplates aloud what she might do with him. As Owen prepares to leave, Abby reminds him of her previous statement, emphasizing that, like she said, they couldn't be friends. The gravity of the situation and the truth about Abby's nature leave Owen grappling with an array of emotions and uncertainty. The detective visits Larry and Virginia at the hospital as part of the ongoing investigation. During the interrogation, Virginia wakes up with her eyes transformed into a vampire's. She discovers the IV in her arm and removes it, drinking the transplanted blood from the wound. As a nurse enters the room and opens the curtains, allowing sunlight to stream in, Virginia ignites in flames. The fire quickly spreads, engulfing the room and the nurse as well. Meanwhile, Owen learns about the hospital fire while dining alone in his apartment, as his mother is away meeting with lawyers. Suddenly, there's a knock at his door, and to his surprise, it's Abby. Confused as to why she needs to be invited inside, Owen doesn't say and asks her to just come inside on her own. Once she gets inside without formal invitation, she begins bleeding from all over her body. Owen swiftly catches on and allows her inside, embracing her in a comforting hug. While Abby takes a shower to cleanse herself, Owen tidies up the floor and discards her soiled clothes. He starts playing some music and suggests that Abby can borrow a dress from his mom. Just as they settle into the moment, Owen's mother returns home unexpectedly. In haste, the kids rush to Owen's room, and Abby climbs out the window to return to her own apartment, leaving Owen to handle the situation with his mother. Later, after making sure his mother is sleeping, Owen heads over to Abby's house and decides to spend the night with Abby in her apartment. The next morning, he wakes up to find a note from Abby, instructing him not to come into the bathroom. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and Owen peers through the peephole to see that it's the detective. He tries to remain quiet, thinking he will go away, but the detective forces his way inside with his gun at the ready, and Owen hides under a table. The officer searches the apartment, discovering the murder victim's wallets and Abby's note on the floor, leading him to the bathroom. There he finds blankets in the tub, which he removes, revealing Abby sleeping underneath. As he begins removing the boards covering the windows to see better, Owen intervenes just in time, preventing a burn from appearing on Abby's leg due to the sunlight. Awakening from her slumber, Abby pounces on the detective and feeds on him. In a moment of desperation, the detective reaches out to Owen, silently pleading for help, but Owen only closes the door and steps away, not having the heart to intervene. Once the encounter is over, Abby embraces Owen and tells him she must go away. She kisses him on the lips as a farewell gesture. That evening, Owen gazes out the window and sheds tears as he watches Abby leave in a taxi. She hides the detective's body in the abandoned room where they previously spent time together before departing. The next day, Owen attends swimming class. However, things take a dangerous turn when the teacher is lured outside by one of the bullies, who draws his attention to a trash bin set on fire as part of a malicious plan. Seizing the opportunity, the four boys lock the door, leaving the teacher outside and gaining full control over the pool area. Inside, the bullies demand that everyone else vacate the premises, leaving only Owen behind. Sensing danger, Owen attempts to escape through the locker room. Unfortunately, his escape plan fails when the bullies capture him and drag him back to the pool area mercilessly, with poor Owen screaming for them to stop. The poor boy is trapped and at the mercy of his tormentors. The group of bullies, led by Kenny's brother, throw Owen inside the pool. Kenny's brother threatens the poor boy to stay underwater for 3 minutes. Dude, the poor boy can barely swim. He warns Owen that if he can do it, he will simply graze him lightly with the knife, but if not, he will poke one of his eyeballs out. Saying that, the boy plunges the victim's head underwater. Owen thrashes and flails miserably underwater. The situation turns even more nightmarish when strange noises fill the air, followed by the sound of glass breaking and the bullies screaming in agony. As blood starts to fill the pool and chaos ensues, Owen is stunned and terrified by the gruesome turn of events. Summoning all his strength, Owen finally manages to break free from the water and gasps for air, only to witness a shocking sight. Guess who came to save the damsel in distress? Some time later, we see Owen aboard a train. As the train chugs along its tracks, he sits in his seat, enjoying the scenery while keeping a mysterious trunk in front of him. When the conductor comes by, he shows his ticket. As the man goes away, suddenly there is a knock from inside the trunk. Owen smiles, subtly taps on the trunk in Morse code in reply, and picks up his favorite candy to eat. The movie ends with Owen enjoying his candy and singing in delight.